Everyone. I just want to clarify something just slightly from the last live stream. I'm doing these super impromptu. I gave this 3 minutes of scheduling preparation. So apologies if it seemed, I don't know, it's my brain. I can't help it. I saw this question was asked in Discord. I was surprised that there wasn't a video I could just link to, and I was like, I'm gonna go record it. So that's how we got here today. And today's topic is how to give every player who enters the world a script or some way to have like an object that's running a script for them. And this question was posed in the Vidyuu Discord by Random, genuinely their name. So thank you, Random, for asking. And let's go ahead and dive into this. So first and foremost, we're going to minimize that. We're going to be doing this in Typescript today. If you are interested in a code block variant, I believe I have a quick link for you. Actually, I posted it in the Discord. Let's just go to Discord, easy enough. Let's go Vidyuu. Let's make this top corner. There we go. And we go down to here. This one. Script a heads-up display health bar in Horizon Worlds. This is a very similar topic, but in code blocks. So if you want to check that out, here's a screenshot of how that works in code blocks. So basically, when a player enters the world, or excuse me, when this object is started on world start, we register it to some manager, which then you provide the object itself to. It then receives this UR4 to know who it's for. And then when the world is entered by a player, we check if they are for is that index. And like that, we've got it. Now we're gonna build something very similar to this. Somebody's just tagged me. I'm not gonna look at it, not gonna look at it. I'm not gonna get distracted. We're gonna build something very similar to this in TypeScript. So that should give you a foundation if you got a code blocks background. Go ahead and start this in desktop mode. I'm kind of hoping for there to be like an update on this. Last update 2 months ago. I guess I'm still running the old version, but I've heard the newest version is not very stable, so maybe that's for the best. All right, let that boot up. Also, hello. Let me go get those chat messages over here. Hello, Drew. Great to have you, and glad you like the topic. Thanks so much for joining. All right, this is loading up over here. Let's make that the right size, right about there. Looks good. All right, so we'll go ahead and create a new world and today's date. That's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna create this world. Is it even gonna, oh, maybe it's not gonna let me create a world. Ah, it did. Oh, I heard about this. It doesn't let you choose the name when you create the world anymore. I'm assuming they'll fix that. That's gotta be unintentional. Yeah. I've been in Unity basically for like the last 3 weeks. And so not having been in Horizon, these little things are kind of fun. Okay, so first and foremost, in the past, we'll just chat for another second longer. Also, White Sword, welcome in. Great to have you. Great to have you, White Sword. So the quick thing here is, in the past, I would have recommended, and you might even see me do this in some of the past videos, where we asset spawn in a scripted object for every player that enters the world. I don't recommend that as of today. Right now, Horizon is broken asset spawning. It's not very good for mobile, and Horizon's push is mobile, so don't use asset spawning until they fix this. And the most notable world that you can see this in is Rexrod and I's new world, Outbreak. Outbreak has power-ups that spawn in, they're assets, and they are not visible to mobile players most of the time, I think. Me, 100% of the time, but I've seen other people on mobile who can see them, so I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to reproduce it. I have no idea. But what I can tell you is there are instances in VR when those assets aren't spawned or seen. They're there, other players can see them and use the power-ups, but some players can't, and it's, don't use asset spawning. So you need to have the assets in the world, which is what I'm going to show you today. And so there's no asset spawning. Everything is just hidden below the world, ready to go. And that's what we do in Power Wash because the asset spawning bug. Okay, so in this world, we're going to start by pulling out an object. Just be a simple shape. It doesn't actually really matter. It doesn't even need to be a shape. In fact, if you're really just trying to run a script for that player, all you really need is an empty, and there should be a way to create an empty, there it is, empty object. And so we'll go ahead and name this a player script. It's a terrible name. Player script holder. It holds the script, right? It's a player script holder, that makes sense. And so we need to attach a script to this. We're gonna go create a new script, which is going to be called the player script holder script, which is going to be attached to an empty or an entity. You'll remember that entity is what we call objects in TypeScript. And I like to put that at the end to describe what this is. So now that we've created that script, there it is, 3 dots, open an external editor. Make sure you have VS Code installed if this is your first time using Typescript. You'll need to have VS Code installed and then restart your computer. Yes, I trust the authors. We're going to shrink this down a little bit. I think it'll still be pretty visible at that size right there. I don't like HZ dots, so I delete this first line. I then delete HZ dot here, and then I like manually import it by backspacing the T, retyping the T, and then clicking enter. That explicitly imports it there at the top. All right, so now I've got this script set up the way I like it, and we're going to come back to this in a minute. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit minimize. And now we can attach the script to this scripts holder. So we'll go ahead and attach the player script holder script to this script. And I like to move objects like this to 0, 0, 0. I no longer build on the grid, so, well, I recommend you don't either. And so at the 0, 0 point, that's where all of my things are nowadays, because inside of Horizon we have this hierarchy when you're on the desktop editor now. And so over here, we need to know how many players this world is for. And so we got like player settings. And we can change this to be, let's say, let's go all the way, 32. No, we'll just go to 16. Keep it reasonable. I think 16 is a pretty reasonable number of players. I recommend pushing your recommended number of players up to 16 too, assuming you're making a world for a lot of players, then probably recommend 16. So with that, we need to have enough of these objects, these script holders, for every player who can enter the world. Now, Horizon's kind of funny because sometimes it'll let 1 or 2 more players join the world than there are slots. And when that happens, we need to have extra script holders. So we're going to start by duplicating this by selecting it and hitting Control-D on our keyboard. That's going to duplicate. I can then select both, Control-D. Now I got 4. Do that one more time. And we're going to go duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. That's 16, 4, 8, 12, and 16. And then we need 2 additional for those potential extra spots that come in. Control-D. Now I find this is more likely to happen. I've got one person in mind who will have over 4 people, or no, not over 4 people, but usually they'll have around 4 people going over their maximum player count. And in their case, it's probably because the world is really running at the high end of capacity. And so I think it just kind of glitches out a little bit more. For us, though, I usually never see it go above 1 in a well-optimized world. So I'm going to do 2 just to be on the safe side. So we've got 18 of these script holders, and this world is for 16 players. Now that we've created that, we need to designate which player these scripts are for. And let me make sure I'm watching the chat. Nobody's said anything, but hello, I see there's people here. Great to have you guys. Thanks for joining. I know we got Drew and White Sword, and anyone else, thank you for joining. So now that we've got these scripts, you're going to see why I labeled this underscore entity, because this script runs on each of these objects, but we also need some place to know which player they're for. So I'm going to create a data file to store that information. Welcome in, new nerd. Great to have you. Tay. So we're going to say player script holder underscore data, and this script will store the data that we need relevant to these. And so we'll go ahead and click open an external editor. And so this doesn't need any of this. I'll hit Control-A to select it all, backspace to delete it all, Control-S to save. And now we're going to just type export constant, and then I like to mirror the name of the file. So this will be player script holder underscore data, and then that equals curly braces. And so what this does is it says we're creating a constant bag of stuff. So curly braces is a JSON object. We sometimes call that a bag of stuff. It means it can hold a bunch of things. And so this, you can add as much different types of data as you want to it. And the first type of data that we're going to create, and we have to create these above so that they're available to be used in this export, is going to be a list of the entities, or an array of the entities. And so we're going to say constant. And this, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in I've been in C# recently. I'm like, entities. So these are our, we'll call them PS holder entities. And that will be of type. So we use colon to determine type, or to say that we have a type. I spelled it wrong. Entities. There we go. So we got the constant PS holder entities of type entity array, and then it's going to equal an empty array. And so here we've defined our PS holder entities array. Welcome in, Cheryl. Great to have you. Thank you, guys. And so then this is an empty array on world start, and over here we need to export it, and we can do that by typing PS holder entities and comma after that. Okay. Failed to save script. Content of file is newer, and we'll just click overwrite. I've heard about this error. I don't know how long it's been going on, but I think just hitting overwrite is probably the best approach. So if you're getting that error, I didn't have that error last time I used the desktop editor, so maybe it's just a one-off. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to close this down and just reopen it just to make sure that it updated correctly, although I do think it did. Perfect. All right, so now that we have this data file storing all of the different holders, or these script holders, we can now go into this script and we can start defining some stuff. So the first thing we need to know is, who am I for? And so the first player this is going to be for is going to be up here. We're going to say I am for equals -1. And we're using -1 because it's not currently for anyone. And so nobody should have the value -1. Now on start, this is where we're going to get that information. In fact, I think I'm going to put this into pre-start. I think that's safe enough to do. Might be, I think it's totally fine. Pre-start is basically where we do everything that needs to happen before the start event, and I feel like this should happen before the start event. This is when world is started. And so pre-start, if you hover over it, you'll see is guaranteed to happen before the start method of all other entities. And so in pre-start, we're going to say player script holder data dot holder entities dot push, and this is going to allow us to add self to this list of entities. And so we're going to say this dot entity. Now that has added self to this array of entities. We're going to add an if statement here, and this if statement is going to make sure we don't add more than one. So we're going to say if parentheses, and this is in the player script holder data dot entities dot includes parentheses this dot entity. And then if we put an exclamation point at the beginning of this, we're saying if it does not include this dot entity, then I'll do curly braces and enter. I just like the format of curly braces enter. I find it's more readable. If you know, you know. So now that we've got this set up, this is now saying if the player is not, or if the object, this dot entity, is not currently in the PS holder entities array, then let's add it to that array. And now we can determine who I am for. And we do that by saying I am for equals, and then we go to player script holder data dot PS holder entities, and then we get the index of parentheses this dot entity. And so now that we have the index of this entity in that array, we know that each of these entities, there's 18 of them, will have a value ranging from 0 to 17. And so I'm just making sure this does what I think it does. Returns the index of the first occurrence of a value in an array, or -1 if it's not present. Perfect. All right, so with that set up, that should work. We should just do a quick console log to make sure this does what we think it does. We'll do console.log. I recommend this if you're just getting started in TypeScript. It's great. And I've been out of Horizon for a minute, so I'm like, let's just quickly do that. Just in case. Let's make sure it's doing what I think it does. All right, so we're going to see 18 of these console logs go onto the console. So let's go ahead and minimize. We'll close this out, clear, wait for that to compile. Looks like it's finished. We'll then turn on world simulation, and we can now see on the console, there they are. There's all of our console logs, 0 through 17. So we have our 18 items being registered and determining who they are for. All right, so then the question is, how do we give this script to a specific player? So heading back into our script, we need to know the player that this is for. And we can do that by saying player, we can call this my player, and this is going to be of type player, and I have to click enter to add this because I'm doing explicit, and then or undefined, and then I put a semicolon. And so my player can either be a player or undefined, and we need to know about when the player enters and exits the world. To do this, I'm going to start by creating a method below start called player enter world, and this is going to receive a player parameter, player colon player, and curly braces. And so when player enters the world, we're going to receive this method. We also want to do something very similar for player exit world, so I'm going to copy paste this. When you're getting started, I recommend just typing it out just to get the muscle memory for it, but once you've been doing this for a year or more like me, copy and paste is your friend and feel free to use it. So now player exit world will also receive a player parameter. Now to connect these and make these methods actually fire, this is where what prestart's actually used for. And so we're going to delete this console log now that we've used it and verified. And this is where we're going to type connect code block event. The code block event is received on self, so this dot entity. And the code block event we're receiving is code block events with an S. Click enter, and then dot gives you a drop-down list for all the code block events. We want to get the one related to world, so I'll type the word world, and you can see player enter world and player exit world are right there, so we'll click player enter world. And we want to connect this to our local player enter world. It's received with a player parameter. You'll see that callback right here. So if I type parentheses player, we're then going to draw an arrow function to the right, curly braces. This means that when player enters world, we're going to receive and run the code inside of this curly braces. So the code we're going to run here is that player enter world that we have down below. So we'll type player enter world. We need to pass in the player parameter from right here. So parentheses, passing in player. I like semicolons, so I'm adding a semicolon here and here. They're technically optional, but I like them, so you'll see me do that all the time. All right, so now this line of code is saying when a player enters the world, we're going to call our local method player enter world. I'm going to duplicate this line, Control-C, Control-V to duplicate. And then we're going to change this to be exit world. And then we can just type exit here, and there it is. And so now we've also done this for player enter and exit. Whew. Okay, so now when the player exits the world, we're going to write a real quick if statement that's super easy to run. If my player triple equals the player who's exiting the world, then we want to set my player to undefined. My player will then equal undefined. And so it will always be undefined when there is no player in the world. And then when player enters the world, we need to know if we are for that player. That's what that I am for value we created was for. So we're going to type if parentheses I am for triple equals player dot index dot get. Now, if you've not used this before, if we hover over index, you can see what it says. And it says, when joining a world, each player is assigned an index, which ranges from 0, the first player to enter the world, to a maximum of max players minus 1. I would not say that these are going to happen in order. I've definitely seen these happen out of order. So wouldn't rely on it being 0, 1, 2, and so on. But this also, don't rely on max players minus 1, as we mentioned earlier. That's why we have an extra 2, because sometimes it goes over the max players. And that is how we verify who we are for, because the index will match the index that we've given to each of these items. And now that we've done that, we can then say player or my player equals player. And then anywhere you need to use this code, you can now do stuff with this player. So whatever you want to have happen for this player, you now have a player. There's a way to connect events. If you hover over connect code block events, you can see that you can connect events from either players or entities. That should be in here. Target, entity or player to listen to. So if you wanted to, you could do connecting code block events for a player, and that's another way to engage with a specific player. You'd connect them when they enter the world. So right here, you'd say something like connect code block event and parentheses player, comma, the event you want to connect, and then you'd send an event to that player. It's a lot more complicated than that, really brushing over that. A more reasonable example would be if we did on update. So down here we could type on update and then parentheses, and this is received with a delta time, and that is a number. If you've not used on update in code blocks, it runs every frame, and delta time is the amount of time that has happened between each frame. And so on update, we could say if my player is defined, meaning we have a player in this world, then what do we want to do? And in this case, we're just going to do a simple console.log parentheses player or my player dot name dot get. And we're just going to do that just to demonstrate that this is working, but you could create any sort of logic in here. Now to connect on update is very similar to what we're doing up here. And so we're just going to do that and say connect broadcast event, local broadcast event, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a minute since I've done this. We'll try it real quick. And then it should be world dot on update. No, it's capital world dot on update. And we're connecting that event to our local. So we'll do parentheses And this one's received with a payload, which is a little different than before. So you have to type payload colon curly braces delta time and then colon number. And then we do our arrow function just like before. And a payload is a JSON object, just like we did in our data file where we created the curly braces. And so that's what you're seeing here. This is a object storing data. In this case, it only stores one piece of data. And then we're going to call with our arrow function the local on update. And then we're going to pass this parameter delta time. And we do that by typing payload dot delta time. And then I'm going to add my semicolons in. And Shift Alt F is going to auto format. I can collapse this easily on the left side by clicking this button to make it so it's easier to read. And so now that we've connected this local broadcast event for on update, we're going to receive on update. And when I join the world, we should see my name bidding logged to the console just to verify that this is working. And when I exit the world, it should stop. And yeah, that's our quick demo on how that's going to work. So let's give that a go. Clear. And I'll go ahead and hit world simulation on. We'll notice that there's nothing on the console. We'll hit play to preview the world. And now you can see that a lot of times that it's racing upwards, 250 and so. We'll go ahead and hit stop. That has now stopped at 403. And if we divided that by 60, you'd be at roughly 8 seconds, was roughly how long we were inside the world. And yeah, so that's how that works. That gives us one script per player. You can then do whatever you need for that script to do. Oftentimes you might have a weapon that players can have, or some item that they use, like a torch is one thing I was using in one of my worlds, or whatever you want a player to have. You could actually do more than just have this invisible object. You could actually make it a physical thing that they carry around. And yeah, so that actually ends our tutorial, but if you've got follow-up questions on that topic, ask away. I see we got quite a few people here. Thanks for joining, you guys. If you're watching this in the future, feel free to leave comments and join us in the Vidyuu Discord. That's where this question came from, was from random in the Discord. And yeah, so glad this was helpful, Drew. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to hang out for another minute, so ask the questions away. I'd be happy to answer. There was a question asked in Discord about office hours. For anyone else wondering, I'm not doing them currently. I'm really in over my head with a project I'm working on. Today I took a day off, which is hysterical to say when I'm working, but I just took a day out of Unity today because I've been grinding on the same problem for 3.5 days straight. So this is a great relaxing way to relax, not gonna lie. So thank you guys so much. It looks like there aren't any questions, but if you do have questions, Discord link is in the description. Feel free to come and join us in the Typescript, code blocks, creator support channels. Love to answer those. You can tag me at Laex05, and I will see you in the next one. And bye!